Welcome to Cut the Crop, keeping you in the know about everything you grow. Researchers, growers and other interesting folk delivering insights and information on topics ranging from agronomy to profitability. Brought to you by the Foundation for Arable Research.
Hello and welcome. I'm Alison Stewart. I'm the CEO of FAR and I'm your host of the Cut the Crop series. Now today we've got the Brothers Green coming to talk to us about hemp. So we've got Brendon, McIntosh and Bradley. Welcome, boys.
Thank you very much.
Now, you're not brothers and your surname's not Green. So let's start off by trying to work out where the name Brothers Green came from.
Wow. I guess it came out of necessity. We had our original company called Beefy Green. When we entered the food starter competition with foodstuffs, which I guess put us on the scene there. But then, so we won the competition under Beefy Green, but then Steve Anderson, the CEO of Foodstuffs, said, "You won, but you need to change your name." And we pushed back a bit and said, "No, Beefy Green, that's who everyone knows us as." And then he's like, "Okay, we're going to do a test around the whole head office of Foodstuffs." And everyone thought we were like a bone broth company. And he's like, "You need to change your name."
So like a plant-based snack bar for kids wasn't... Yeah. He didn't think it was a consumer would not look at it and think that's what they were talking about.
And I think he was probably right.
Well, yeah, so
Yeah.
it turns out we listened to him. Obviously him being head of Foodstuffs and us not having any food experience, we took it on board. And
So picking up on that, like, what's your background? Where have you come from? What's your expertise? And why did you suddenly decide to get into sort of hemp?
So I'm a pharmacist by trade, and it was probably in my second year at university watching all my flatmates spend hundreds of dollars on supplements and me looking at what was in them and thinking I could make better ones. So started with down that, making pre-workouts and then protein supplements throughout uni and then into my intern year. And then I went and did some postgraduate training in nutritional and environmental medicine and learnt about the plant-based diet. And so then I was wanting to switch to more of a plant-based supplement or protein powder, and at that time I was looking to import pea protein from Europe, and then met this med student, Tori, who said, "What about hemp?" And so this was 3 years ago now, and probably 3.5 years ago, and I was like, "Oh, I can't be doing that. I can't be associated with marijuana. I'm a health professional." And she said, "It's not marijuana, it's a completely different plant," and gave me things to go away and read up on it. So I did that, and then she introduced me to someone who was growing it down in Ashburton, and that was where Beefy Green was born.
Yeah. And so how did Brad get involved?
I guess...
Brad can talk for himself, you know.
Yeah, well, I guess
come on, Brad, you know.
No, I guess that's definitely the first part of the story, anyways, because Brendon was the one who sourced the original hemp, and from my perspective, I was a rural banker for ASB, looking after North Canterbury, so I had about 40 rural clients, and on top of that, I was playing footy for Lincoln University out here, and I suffered a second shoulder injury, so dislocated out here out in the front fields against UC one day, and 3 weeks before the semi-finals, and I needed to have my second shoulder surgery, and after my first one I had quite a long sort of tedious recovery on like anti-inflammatories and painkillers and things like that, and really didn't like the experience. So going into my second surgery, I had a really deep look into what role nutrition and lifestyle choices were going to play in making that recovery easier, and so I guess moving to a much more whole foods diet and probably about 90% plant-based was sort of where everything was telling me to go, and so it went from sort of a 6-week recovery period down to about 2 or 3 days. So I was back at work and felt better than ever. So I guess me finding Brendon was was my way of finding sort of a protein source that wasn't whey protein, and which was really cool to find out that it was a New Zealand product, and all the benefits of hemp had sort of come to light from a nutritional sense. But on the other side of that, I just started my job as a rural manager, and it was the bottom of the dairy downturn. So essentially, farmers were losing $1 for every kilo they're producing, and we're in the worst drought North Canterbury had suffered for about 30 years. And I guess it was just sort of quite eye-opening. We've told, New Zealand's got this wonderful story about, our food quality and how we do it, and here we were, farmers, losing money every day for, inside the farm gate. And for me, it just sort of highlighted, I guess, some of the weaknesses that sort of, I think, exist within a lot of our, a majority of the products that we produce on farm here in New Zealand, around being, very much based on a commodity market. And for me, when I started to research what else we could do, particularly in North Canterbury, we've got irrigation up there, and there's a lot of free draining soils. Hemp just kept coming up as a really powerful option because it had such a diversity of markets. We could grow for leaf and fibre and flower and root and seed. So for me, I really thought that, it would be an incredibly powerful opportunity if we could at least offer it to farmers, because I was talking to farmers about it, and and just the brief amount of knowledge that I had, they was quite interested, but we didn't sort of have it available to us through regulation and sort of lack of, I guess, retail market and consumer understanding of what the product was, and also there was just not the processing facilities and contracts around. So we sat down with Brendon one night, and I sort of explained to him my justification and reason for falling head over heels for hemp, and I guess we sort of made a decision that if we wanted to really make some changes in regards to making hemp at least accessible to consumers as well as to farmers, then we really need to have a huge focus on education, and also creating sort of retail brands and products that were fit for purpose, easy to use, and were recognisable, not sort of not too difficult to sort of change or shift from one product to another. So that my sort of thinking back then was that if we could create these retail markets, then that would then justify us to go back to farmers and justify them going and putting hemp in the ground and putting contracts in place and things like that. So I guess the last up until January last year, that was really our mission, was to produce retail brands and retail products that we could put hemp into, that were value added. I guess started to sort of tap into that plant-based protein trend that's starting to sort of take hold, and that sort of allowed us to, I guess last year we formed a company called Mainland Hemp, which is a hemp processing company that we've set up with a processing facility up in Culverden, on one of the shareholders' family farms. So now we've just recently harvested our first 100 tonne of hemp seed, and we're about to put it all through our own processing plant and everything. So we can really tell that whole paddock to plate vertically integrated story, and I guess the whole model of getting those retail brands together and products into the market has sort of justified our investment and going out and putting contracts in place for these farmers. So it was our first season, really incredibly exciting to obviously be able to tell that story. And
so how many farmers have you got growing hemp? I mean, what kind of acreages have you got?
There's about 10, about 10 family farms.
10 farms, about between probably, I think it was about 120, 130 hectares we grew this year.
So it's actually quite a good start.
Point. It was decent. It's a pretty eye-watering contract, but I guess. But yeah, for us it was. We also, we wanted to trial irrigated and dry land as well. And for me, when I really think about what the long-term, prospects for the industry are, and for farmers in New Zealand, I think the quicker we can get into it, and the quicker we can make mistakes and learn from it, and get their mindsets around what the changes are required to grow it properly, and the better. So for us it really was a trial year. We got 9 or 10 different farmers on board, and everyone's got their license now, and they've all done, their testing. And
so you help them do that? Like you have some sort of like process where, a grower or a farmer comes to you, says, I'm interested, and then you help them get their license, and you provide them with agronomic information about how to grow the crop?
Yeah, so I guess the group that we put together are all shareholders. One of them was an agronomist. We've got 2 rural bankers in there as well, and a farmer. So, I guess we went out and we still, this is still, an agricultural, crop, so it needs to be done, with, we want the best growers we can find, and so I guess that was this year was, going out and finding those growers, and I think next year we'll probably scale back the number of growers and increase the acreage on those individual farms, and so there's no shortage of people who are looking to grow or would be keen to grow, but I guess for us now we're really concentrating on the farmers we've got now, and we've got an agronomist on board, so he's sort of building the program around, or improving the program that we used last year.
So are these dairy farmers, or are these arable farmers, or a mixture of both?
It's been a mixture, really. It's a mixture of sheep and beef, and grazing, and a bit of dairy. So yeah, it's been quite diverse, which has been good because that's what we want. We want it to be, we want it to be a system to be available for all the systems that have irrigation or have the ability to go cropping. So yeah, it was a pretty diverse mix.
So coming back to that comment that you made, Brendon, about people's perception about, hemp versus marijuana, do you think that, the general public now have a clear understanding of the difference, or are you still meeting that misunderstanding out there? Yeah,
I think, so I guess 2 years ago when we started at the Christchurch Farmers Market, we were wearing our hemp clothes, and people were asking if they could smoke our t-shirts and things like that. And you do, the further you go, you sometimes get a sense that people are waking up and realising the difference. But then that's probably just people that we're surrounding ourselves with, because as soon as you meet someone new, there's still people who think it's still marijuana, and I mean, don't blame them, because I was a pharmacist for 6 years and still thought it was marijuana.
So for those listeners who don't understand, just explain what the difference is.
So they're both hemp and marijuana. I guess they're both from the cannabis species, both cannabis sativa, but then you get different strains, which to be industrial hemp. So there's these, I guess, compounds within the hemp plant called cannabinoids, and then I guess the most popular cannabinoid that everyone knows is THC, which is one that gives psychoactive effects. But then there's also like CBD and then a whole range of other cannabinoids. But they're the 2 that we know the most about. And for hemp to be industrial hemp for use, for us to allow to use the seed and things like that, it has to have less than 0.3% THC. Mm-hmm. So it's just been, I guess it's just different strains, just like different tomato plants and things like that. You've just got different makeup in there. But yeah, we have to test every crop, make sure there's no THC in there, which, the seeds we've got at the moment, they're pretty good. I think it came back at like 0.04%, so it's well below. And yeah, does that explain it?
Yeah. Well, it does to me, but we'll see how it ended.
Yeah, and I guess on that, like, marijuana and these high THC strains of cannabis sativa are human creations. So, hemp is, traditionally, when it was grown 10,000 years ago, there was nowhere near the levels of THC or psychoactive substance. So these are all, man-made, genetics that have been developed over the last, I guess 60 or 70 years to obviously produce a greater psychoactive effect. But for the base, and traditionally hemp has always been, I guess a non-psychoactive and highly industrial use crop. So yeah, sort of only in the last sort of 60, 70 years that marijuana has sort of become or taken centre stage in the cannabis family. So
So coming back to the products, tell us about the products that you're developing, because you started off with the hempy bar. Was that the first one off the ranks?
That was, I guess, the one that we entered, and we entered that food starter competition. We wanted under Beefy Green as a high protein snack bar for gym goers, and then obviously with the advice and help from Foodstuffs, it turned into a kids snack bar. With our organic hemp seeds in there, and it was healthy, no refined sugar. It was gluten free, all plant based, and in home compostable packaging. And that's what really, I guess, put us on the map, maybe you'd say. That was like, because we had obviously just doing that was like our first value added product. We were just doing straight protein powder, seeds, oil. But yeah, to be able to win that competition and be able to convince a bakery to produce it for us, that was a pretty big milestone. And now we're just obviously building on that momentum and keeping it going, bringing out a new flavour soon.
And we have got I guess a couple other brands as well. So we've got Kawaka, which is a skincare range, a body care range, which we've got a peeling balm, a lip balm, soaps and shampoos, deodorant, all sort of using organic hemp seed oil as a base. And so I guess with Brothers Green and Kawaka, which are really driving, I guess at the moment, the whole education piece around the use of hemp from a nutritional and a skincare perspective, particularly based around the oil. We're having fantastic feedback from people who are using the hemp seed oil as a daily supplement. So for omega-3s, perfect ratio of omega-3 and 6, highly anti-inflammatory, and I guess that's been really awesome to see. People who would probably typically have always been quite anti cannabis, or who you probably didn't know much about it, to start taking a product like that and have really powerful results with their pain management and inflammation and things like that. So that's really what we want to get out there, is that here's a product that's just an oil extracted out of a seed, and we're seeing significant improvements in a lot of conditions that people, particularly from an older generation, face. And I think that's one of the main things for us is we need to really start to look at what are we putting in our bodies from a nutritional standpoint, which isn't a pill to try and treat some of these conditions, because these are chronic conditions that an acute based treatment system like our current healthcare system isn't designed to treat. So for us, it's really important that we sort of promote people starting to take a bit more responsibility about their own health, and look at what they are putting in their own body, because it's having an effect. And we're a pretty sick society. I mean, we're the third most obese country on the planet. We have the second highest rate of childhood obesity, and the research now they've done is that if your child is pre-diabetic or obese by the time they become a teenager, there's an average decrease in life expectancy of 20 years. So I mean that's child abuse, So what do we, as a society, how can we sit here and accept that we have the second highest rate of childhood obesity on the planet, and we're worried about,
But so you're trying to do a lot, as a startup company. I mean, you've got your hempy bars, you've got your oils and your seeds, your skincare and clothing. How are you managing to cope with all of these different product opportunities?
I think we've been pretty lucky that we've managed to attract quite a awesome team around us. All these ideas came at us, and we couldn't really do it. But then now all these awesome people are coming out of the woodworks as well who want to get on board and help. And so we've got general manager for the Brothers Green, Michael. He's based in Wellington. He's also from a dairy business background, and he has just taken the Brothers Green next level, put in systems, and I guess me and Brad aren't the best sort of, workhorses.
We can work, but
in terms of organisation and things like that,
managers, yeah.
We've been lucky to have sort of Michael and Brothers Green, and then Alicia and Kawaka, and then I guess Aaron and Joe, who are running the markets for us around Christchurch. And then we've got a awesome marketing team now as well, and Alexia and Rachel, which, it's just, the team's growing. Look, we've got about 13, 14 on board now.
Which is great in such a short period of time.
Yeah.
And so obviously, you've got this huge growth potential that, if you manage to get that to actually come to fruition, it's going to open up some good opportunities for growers and farmers in the sort of Greater Canterbury area. So I'm guessing that, you're going to be looking for a lot more growers that will want to be involved in growing hemp over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, that's sort of, that's definitely the ultimate goal. I mean, when Brad first came around to my house 3 years ago, and wanted to give those North Canterbury farmers another option, that was sort of like, I guess, a 5-year goal, but we're 2.5 years in and already got the contracts for those 10 farms, which was amazing. But I guess now the issue is, we're getting a lot more farmers hitting us up wanting to grow, but we don't have any capacity in the current contract. But what we are doing with Mainland Hemp is, up on the website, we're putting a sort of a how to grow, step by step, how to get your license, how to grow it, and then Mainland Hemp's got the facility there that outside a contract you can process your own hemp, sort of thing. Mainland can do it for you.
That was our whole, when we first started, there was no one out there who could do any toll processing for the South Island. So last year we harvested our first crop and shifted up to Wainui to get processed. And, I think for me, the main point from us is we really need as many retail brands and people in the education space to be, driving the consumer market for hemp, because it's a fantastic product. There's no question about its benefits and its uses and its nutritional profile and everything. But we're still dealing with a relatively ignorant consumer base, and there needs to be as much education around that. We need support from government. We need change in legislation to really take it off that. Take it out of the Ministry of Health, Misuse of Drugs Act, and put it with MPI as the vegetable that it is, and remove any of that help remove any of that stigma, because that's holding the industry back at the moment. We're talking, most of our farmers probably netted between 3.5 and 4.5 grand a profit a hectare this year, and that was over 3 months,
which is a really nice gross margin, to fit into an existing sort of farm system, and assuming it fits into your other rotational crops or livestock or whatever, that's a really nice money earner.
Yeah, exactly. And as you say, there should be, New Zealand does food brilliantly. That's what we do. We produce food, and we've got a growing plant-based protein trend that's growing around the world, and we should be aligning with that and putting a plant-based protein option out there just alongside our red meat and our white proteins. So and farmers want to get on board. They want to do they want to get into this. They're just as motivated to us to change and to meet some of those growing I guess market trends. And I don't want to have to sit here and go through another 2 or 3 year downturn in the dairy market and see the pain and what that actually does to people and family farms and things like that, because it's not pretty. And why would we take the risk that when we're in such an undiversified product range when we've got a good option here, so if we can get that real industry and government level support to change that perception and let us do what we do best, which is spread the word and sell more hemp, then Canterbury should be the hub of growing hemp in New Zealand, because we've got irrigation, we've got good soils, anywhere where we've got access to those drying facilities, then absolutely they should have the option to grow hemp. So
is there any major challenges from the point of growing hemp? I mean, of major pests and diseases or harvesting problems or establishment problems that need to be addressed?
No, we sort of had birds are the main issue really. So when you've got particularly anything under 10 hectares, you can get pretty significant bird bird damage. We didn't have any harvesting issues this year. It certainly likes water, and it is quite, I guess, nitrogen heavy and certainly high in P as well. So sort of just we're looking at how we're going to operate within that system. But yeah, it's there's a lot of learnings to happen, and we're certainly just at the early stages. I mean, look how far wheat's come in the last 30 or 40 years in regards to yields. And then you think about what could happen if we're 40, 30 years down the track in regards to genetics and breeding with a crop like this, when we're already getting, we've had, one of our organic farms this year, I think he averaged about 1.6 tonne.
Which is really good, particularly for organic.
And that's fantastic, and the more we can expose not just New Zealand but the world to the quality of New Zealand's hemp, then I think it's a huge opportunity, I reckon. Yeah.
So it's interesting that you decided to invest in the processing side, because that's often the thing that sort of blocks development in New Zealand, is that people aren't prepared to put the big dollars on the table to sort of get the processing side, so that you can go from sort of the field right the way through to the market. And you've chosen to put it in North Canterbury. Have you got sort of really good capacity to build that processing plant, or do you imagine that any expansion is going to have to come from other regions developing their own processing capability?
Well, I think it'll be a pretty future-proofed.
There's definitely a lot of capacity up there.
There's a lot of capacity. So I mean, the dry that we put in can do sort of 2 to 3 tonne an hour, and I think the dehulling machine and the equipment that we're putting in place is certainly capable of doing a significant amount of hemp. So we've partnered with Notahu. Notahu grew for us this year, and they're going to grow significantly more this year for us next year. And I just think for me, that was my area as a real banker, and I saw a lot of potential in the Huronui, and they've got a good irrigation scheme, some of the cheapest water in the country, and I think that the community there is excited about something new. Like it's exciting to see a big, all of a sudden this drying plant for small seed that prior to 2 years ago wasn't even available for the Huronui. So it's not just opening up hemp, but it's opening up a range of small seed and options that potential cropping options. So I think certainly within the Huronui is going to certainly hopefully satisfy our demand for the next few years anyway.
So you're in there for the long haul then?
We absolutely are. We're not doing it again.
Well, that's right. But it's so many people are scared of taking that initial risk. It is a risky thing trying to set up a new company, establish a new industry. So have you had any sleepless nights over the last year?
Recently, I think on that, just realising how lucky we have been and how lucky it's all turned out. Just so happened that Brad's mate from school has a farm in Culverden, and his parents are real go-getters and keen to be involved, and obviously you've heard Brad talk now, and he's a pretty convincing character, and obviously just went and talked to the parents and sold them the future, and they were pulled trigger, and then also convincing his other university mates from Lincoln get them on board as well, and I think that's just how it's just growing, and everyone is sort of, it's pretty crazy to think that people thinking that we can pull it off and got faith in us, and and it's worked so far.
So what's the plan for the next couple of years then? What's the big focus?
I'm very focused on getting over to Melbourne. We went to Melbourne just before lockdown and talked to a distributor there, and they were really keen, and then obviously that happened, and so we've been pushed back a bit there, but I'm working with NZT at the moment to get on the first plane over there once the bubble opens up, and just get on the ground there, get the market going there, And then in the meantime, we're just getting, like, every week we're getting people asking us from overseas markets, so we're sort of trying to ride the New Zealand quality, New Zealand organic food story, and being able to provide that.
Yeah.
So all your products are organic?
No. So we've just got organic in a traditional range. So, one of the best things about hemp is it doesn't sort of need any sort of insecticide or pesticide, so it's very low input. Pretty much just using like a pre-emergence, it's. I think from my perspective, I just really want to put New Zealand hemp products on the map, worldwide. I think particularly in the food space. Is that, we often complain about, the compliance and the level of focus on our environmental impacts and things, and in our farming sector, but I think, that's our strategic advantage, and I think we should utilise that, and we should sell that story that we do food to the highest quality and for the lowest impact on our environment, and for me, that's the story we need to tell, and that's what we want to tell. I just want New Zealand hemp to be known as like the creme de la creme of hemp products in the world, and I think, particularly now with what we've seen in the last few months with COVID and everything like that, I think New Zealand's been put on a bit of a pedestal and in the spotlight. So trying to capitalise on, making sure that people are aware that we do really high quality plant proteins and particularly high quality hemp in the food space as well. So
if any of our listeners were thinking, I might want to try out some of these products, are they out in all the supermarkets? Or do you have to go to a specialist health and nutrition shop?
No, so the hempy bars are in every New World in the South Island, and then a select few pack and saves. And then in about 40 New Worlds in the North Island as well. But in terms of our protein and hearts and seeds, things like that, they're in a lot of whole food stores, especially around Christchurch.
Online.
Online's probably the best.
The Brothers Green, theBrothersGreen.co. And we've got some oil in the supermarket as well. So the oil for us has probably been a real leader. In terms of people using it for not just as a food, but as a supplement and something to help with a lot of pain and things like that. So I definitely recommend to anyone who's got any kind of aches or pains to try and find a bowl of hemp seed oil, particularly the Brothers Green, and give it a go, because a tablespoon a day seems to do wonders for a huge range of conditions. So. But
our website's got all of our stockists on there as well, so it's probably a good starting point, actually.
Yeah. That's great. What I really like about your story is that you've just jumped in there, boots and all, and you've just made it happen. And so many people put up all the barriers to trying to do something a little bit different. And you've obviously had the confidence in yourself, and other people have seen that and they've got in behind you. And, if it provides another growing option for the arable or the dairy sector in particularly in the Canterbury region, then FAR is so supportive of these kinds of initiatives. So thank you very much, both Brad and Brendon, and good luck, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much, Alison.
It's
awesome. Thanks for having us.
And thank you, listeners, and have a great day on the farm.
Thanks for tuning in to Cut the Crop, presented to you by FAR. If you'd like to know more about any of the topics discussed or have any suggestions for future topics, go to www.cutthecrop.co.nz.